Today we're talking to a guy that a little bit more than a year ago was in college getting his master's degree, and he decided to drop all of that to become an appointment setter.
Almost exactly a year. I was in class getting my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. I knew that there was something more for me. So just like most people out there, I was scrolling through Instagram and saw an ad for an appointment setter program.
And in that amount of time, he almost hit a record of $40,000 in a single month in commissions and has been able to do some pretty awesome things.
My best month in sales was close to $40,000. And the lifestyle that comes with that, I love Maseratis. So I bought a new Maserati. I travel wherever I want. Sometimes I just text my mom or a friend of mine. And I'm like, hey, I'll be out in Scottsdale this weekend. Hey, I'm going out to Houston, Texas, and it's like, what's happening in your life right now?
All that coming up in today's episode of the Remote Closing Academy podcast.
Before we jump too deep into it, bro, how's the week been and how's everything going?
Aaron, my man, I appreciate you, one, for having me on. I've actually watched the RCA podcast before I even got involved with RCA. So to see it come full circle and now to be in this chair is really cool to see. I appreciate you inviting me on. And dude, man, yeah, I appreciate your presence and everything you guys have done for me so far. But week's been awesome, as you know, just closing deals and leveling up my skill set. So that's the day-to-day grind here.
Dude, that's amazing. And I love, a lot of times when it's not a prerequisite to listen to the show to jump on, but it's really cool to see, people that watch the episodes, and then it is that full circle moment of like literally anyone that's listening to this podcast has the same opportunity that Zack has, as long as you're willing to put in the work. So I do want to just like really go deep into the story of like how that all kind of came to fruition. But before we go, too deep into like the closing and the tips, because we definitely, I want to get tactical in this episode. Let's just bring it back. What were you doing before remote closing? I mean, really as far back as you want to go. Let's talk about it.
Oh boy, well, how much time do we really have? No, I'm kidding. So if we were to really, I guess, go back to the moment that it really all changed for me, which is a decision that I made just a little under a year ago. In fact, February 1st, which is literally almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah, almost exactly a year.
Literally almost exactly a year from today, I was in class, actually. I was getting my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. I knew that there was something more for me, not only within that field, but just in general. I've always been drawn to this idea of entrepreneurship and sales. And so just like most people out there, I was scrolling through Instagram and saw an ad for an appointment setter program. And I was like, what is this? I have no idea what high ticket sales even is. Let me give it a shot. And so I clicked on the ad. One thing led to the next. You get down the funnel and you're speaking to a closer who I actually still am connected with. And started off my skill set training in the high ticket industry as a setter. Did that for a couple months. Landed my first triage gig. Did that for about a month and a half. Then started closing immediately right after that. I accelerated very quickly. And the next thing you know, I'm dropping out of my master's degree. I'm dropping out of grad school. And I go all in on my skill set to become a high ticket closer. I sold digital marketing services. I sold sales training. And finally, I'm now wind up, and I also sold business consulting for spiritual entrepreneurs. And now I'm finally here, which is the company I'm selling for right now. In fact, I'm currently repping it, which is Superhuman. So it's been quite a journey to get to where I'm at right now. But ultimately, if I had to go back and tell myself like a year ago today at February, I would say you've been a closer your whole life. You've been in business your whole life, and you just didn't know it yet. And I think if I knew that right away, obviously I'd have much more of a hockey stick acceleration. But super grateful to be here. And I went through Jeremy Miner's programs. I went through Eli Wild's programs. I went through Cole Gordon, and then as soon as I invested with Cole Gordon, got into Ascension, really took my game to the next level, and was able to fire away some pretty great opportunities. So I know I could have gone a little bit more detail, but that's sort of like the 30,000 foot overview of how I got here.
Yeah, I love being able to like kind of hear the whole thing and then be able to go back to bits and pieces. So just so that you understand too, like a lot of the questions that I try to ask in these episodes is like to really pull out what other experience or what might be similar to other people's experiences. Yeah. So for you being in the situation of, you're in college and you obviously made it to your master's. So you've invested a heavy amount of money into just to even get to that point. So what was, I guess, the mindset for you to like jump ship from that, understanding that you've already put so much money into it and time, you
Yeah, I do know what you mean. It was hard, man. Like it was really hard because for the last previous 5 years of my life, there was this narrative that you got to go to school, you got to get your degree, you got to go and do this certain path. And I've invested close to between 60 and $100,000 through going through school and not a lot, that, and also a shit ton of time too, like that's a lot. I was a 3.9 out of 4.0 student, when I was in school. And so I 100% thought that being in my master's degree was my path, until I ultimately woke up to what entrepreneurship and what business can really do. And so I was in class, and then after class, I was doing sales training. In between classes, inside the hallway, I was calling leads. I was doing everything I could to master this game. And ultimately, when you put yourself in front of the right people at the right times and you ask the right questions, your life can change like this, and as long as you are committed to one thing, which has been for me, which is just ultimate service. If you are just committed to ultimate service at a high level, whether that be in sales or whatever, you will win. You will win big. And as long as you put yourself in the right opportunity vehicles to get there, you'll see immense amount of success.
know? Was there ever was there like a specific, what Cole in sales, right? Or Cole likes to talk about it, is like the moment of decision. So like, was there a moment or something that happened to you that like was just the switch of like, hey, I got to stop doing the school thing and just full, go full force into closing?
Yeah, I was sitting in my apartment a little over a year ago today. I was just laying down on my couch. I was meditating, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And we see the fireworks now coming up.
Yeah, I was like, literally, it was perfect.
Right. And I was meditating on the couch, and I started asking myself this question: what do you really want? What do you really want? And I just gave myself that permission to dream as big as possible. And I started thinking about things like, I want to fly private. I want to send my kids off to private school and have private education. I want to live in a very large house and have own multiple properties. I want a large family. I want some materialistic things as well. I want to live a certain type of lifestyle. I want to be on stage. I want to be impacting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives across the world. And I knew that the vehicle, the investment of just higher education within the schooling system wasn't ultimately going to get me there in the time frame that I had for myself. And that's ultimately where it came down to, is what decisions do I have to make right now in order to set me up to where I know I want to be within a specific amount of time. And once I chunked that down in my mind, I was able to realize that in a split moment, I made a decision to pivot and to look at other directions, and I didn't look back. I was relentless in that decision-making process.
Yeah, I think there's a huge, in anyone that I've talked to that has seen like any amounts of success, is a direct correlation between their success and their ability to make decisions. Right. And even more specifically that you're talking about is like making like split second decisions, because I mean, even if we're talking about the micro of like, let's say it took you a week to make a decision, it's like there's so much opportunity that happens in that amount of time. And when you can like actively be the one to like make really quick decisions, guess how your prospects are going to be when you're talking to them on the other end, right? I think there's so much power in like living it. We call it like the law of the mirror, right? It's like being able to make the decisions and take the actions that you want your prospects to take, because you can speak with 100% conviction to them that it's going to be the right decision for them because you have acted in the same way. So yeah, dude, I think, and I mean, maybe you can attest to that. When you're on your calls, do you like play into that same thing of like, this is how I've done it, this is like how I make decisions, and kind of like lend that certainty to them?
Yeah, and I frame it as an identity. It's like, who do you ultimately want to become? What would that man do? If that man would be hyper aggressive in their decision making process toward their ultimate goal, why wouldn't you embody that frame of decision making now? Because ultimately, I think people make it harder than it really needs to be. And there's a lot of internal resistance, a lot of things coming up in their past that hold them back, and on the narratives that they tell themselves. And ultimately, if you are able to recognize what that is and what purpose that is serving, and just simply say no to that anymore, that doesn't serve me anymore. Where am I going to go now? Now we can start pulling in that version, that reality that we so desire, right? And it doesn't need to be difficult. It can just be you can do it with ease and almost sort of like an allowance to happen, right? Not necessarily grind mentality. It's more of like, hey, what does it take to get there? I know it might be fearful or scary to do it, but what do I prioritize more, the destination or being scared with my current situation, right? For me, it's the destination. So I'll do anything it takes to make decisions in coordinates and in congruence with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So let's maybe take a couple steps, I guess, in this at where we are now, a little bit back. So you leave college, you go full force into these, into the setting position there. What was like the time frame, or like what was the situation? Like just kind of paint the picture of like what it looked like jumping into the setting program, and then like, moving on from there.
Yeah, so I jumped into a setting program. It took me like maybe 40 days to get certified within that program. They had like a job placement opportunity within that program. Now, I didn't even go through their typical job placement strategy because the business owner of that program reached out to me and set me up with a connection within his own network. So I got promoted basically from a DM setter to a call setter, like a triager right away, almost instantaneously because of my natural speaking ability, right? And so when I did that for about a month or two, wasn't really happy with the amount of money that I was making, but definitely learned a solid skill set, like the base of the skill set that I needed to learn in order to go to the next level. I realized, oh wow, there are levels to this game. There are levels to sales. I'm at the just very beginning. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to do at this point to get me to the next stage? And also define what that next stage is. So that decision is very clear. So that when I do make it, I don't have to hesitate. I can just make it and be comfortable with that. I know that was a little bit of a vague answer, but I was working like between 20 and 30 hours a week while also going to class, while also having a club that I ran, while also being another part-time job. And I was juggling about 5 or 6 different things at one time. And I was like, if I could still be better than average, if not close to great in all of these things, imagine what I could do if I just put 100% of my focus into sales and into sales
Mm-hmm.
training, and what that would really do for me. And ultimately it paid off.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to one thing that you said, how did you get noticed from the owner, or like the business owner of that initial setting program, to get, then have the confidence to then place you somewhere else?
2 words: show up. I showed up to every single coaching call. I wrote down notes from every single coaching call that I had. I asked questions. In fact, I even, if it was more of like a sporting, let's say we're playing basketball on the coaching call, I would be like a ball hog, and I would take up time and ask maybe 2 or 3 or 4 questions because I just wanted my questions answered, right? So granted,
Yeah.
you know, was that, was that allowed? I don't know. But point taken is that I knew that I had a vision, I had a goal, and I was willing to show up in order to get there. When you enter a room, let's say you walk into a room of 50 people and there's one person in that room that you will truly connect with. The only way that person will know who you are is if they know that you're there. And the only reason that they know you're there is if you go and introduce yourself. And so show up, introduce yourself, ask the right questions, and just see where that takes you, because it will take you somewhere. And if you have an intuitive sense at where you're at right now and where you want to go, you'll be surprised at the way this whole quote, manifestation thing really works, because I ultimately believe that God's on my side, and I'm a faith-based person. And I know that if I act in alignment and with my heart and my gut, I'm going to wind up somewhere great.
Yeah, man. I 100% can talk to that and attest to that as well in terms of just showing up, because even recently I've jumped into a couple like, self-development programs. I just started this like marathon training in this, this one group program. And like, dude, I'm just a freaking sponge, and I just love asking questions. Cause it's like, if you don't ask, like you paid to be there. Right. And this is for, anyone that's listening that maybe has bought a program in the past, is currently an RCA, like be the freaking squeaky wheel, because it does two things. Number one is you pay to be there. So like soak up as much information as you can. And number two is a lot of people just don't like understand that aspect for whatever reason. So when you can like be the one that's there, great example. There's the marathon coaching program that I jumped into, like marathon prep, is the guy, that runs it. He's like a 3-time like Olympic finalist, or not finalist, Olympic like competitor in running marathons. Dude runs like a 4:30 mile. Like it's insane. And I've been asking a ton of questions and things like that. And he like reached out to me the other day. He's like, dude, thank you so much for like everything that you gave to the community. Just like seeing your questions in there, it inspires other people. Like, do you want to do this like this run with me, in a couple of months? And I'm like, sure, why not? Let's do it. And that's just another experience that I wouldn't be able to have if I was just passive in the background. There's just so much opportunities that could be open up. So anyway, just wanted to talk to that because I 100% agree.
Well, 100%. And I think it's because of your ability to show up and ask questions to those people. They now know that you care. And like, if you talk about business as a whole, what makes a great business a great business? It's that people can tell that you authentically care about them. And what's the best way to do that? Ask great questions and listen. That's it. And talk about being a great closer. What do you got to do? You're not the one talking 50, 60, 70% of the time. You're the one sitting there gathering information and asking great questions. Why? Because you care. That's it. You care. And it's felt authentically.
Yeah. So you go from, the DM setting up into triaging, up into closing. What were, other than showing up, asking questions, things like that, like again, talking to someone that is in the beginning of their journey, just actionable steps you'd give for people that are looking to increase their skill set quicker than maybe the average person?
Get a portable phone charger and get a really great pair of wireless earbuds and listen to as many sales training or sales audiobooks or sales books as you freaking can. Now, I think there's different seasons of life. I'm now speaking to my former self, right? So if you've connected with all of my story, here's what I would tell you. Become obsessed. Become obsessed. And if your life is a little bit unbalanced right now, because one part of your life is calling you to really go all in on something, then just go all in on it and don't hold back. Listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos on this stuff. There's tons of information. I think ultimately people get stuck in like, this sort of, and I've heard, Chris Williamson talk about this with Alex Hormozy, is like this, this information sort of paralyzation. Like everyone's so paralyzed by information. And if you just go and apply yourself to learn and then apply, learn, apply every day, you'll be surprised at your ability to speak and communicate. Because the number one greatest voice that you have, or I just gave the answer away, the number one greatest tool, the number one greatest instrument is your voice. I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
And even just so much that so much that you're talking about is, because you've even mentioned it multiple times, is how fundamental understanding sales and communication is, right? Like every single thing that we've talked about up to this point is just being able to be good at listening and, not only like listening, but like hearing, right? Like I think it's, listening, but like hearing people out and like being able to talk, just be able to play off of the things that they're saying, not just like, oh, they said this one thing, let me write it down so I can like bring it up later. You know what I mean? So it always just like helps me remind people that if you just learn this skill for like the next 6 months and really just like dive into it, there's so much opportunity that can open, and you're, a great example of that.
It's cool because like this skill that we all talk about of closing, everyone can do it. Everyone's already done it. Like, for example, if I ask a random stranger on the street what their name is, let's just say the guy's name is Matt and he goes, my name's Matt. And he says it like that. It's like, okay, I believe you. I don't have to like, it's the transference of conviction that you know what you're talking about. Or if you do, ask someone a question, it's a flow, it's a dance. And if you know what you're talking about and each word stays intentional, the skill comes in intentionality. The skill comes in the timing at which you say or ask a question, right? The skill comes in with, okay, it's not a specific question that I need to ask right now. It's really about how can I get a specific answer that elucidates to them that maybe they need to change, right? Which is the reason why they're here. Like, hey man, you came to me with this problem, right? I'm not going to say I can solve it just yet. I want to understand your story. I want to understand where you've been, what you've tried, how long you've tried that for. Is it working? Is it not working? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it?
Mm.
And then when you go in and you really ask those types of questions, people are like, oh my gosh, this guy, he cares about the full picture, not just about what I want, but about what hasn't worked and why, you know? And I think, and we do this with our families, we do this with our friends that are really close to us. We do it every day, but the skill is being able to do it with a stranger, right? And I think, and then ultimately do it with a stranger, and you can build rapport, build a massive rapport is a spectrum, right? How much rapport can you build in 20 minutes? Right. And
Yeah.
I think that's the real skill is showing up as a human being 100% of the time.
So I do want to, obviously get kind of tactical here, but before we go into like sales tips and things like that, 2 questions,
Sure.
and we'll kind of hit them back to back. So what was your like actually no, better question first would be, because I feel like we've talked a lot about like, I crushed it with this. I crushed it with this. I made it here. What were like some of the outside of like making the transition from school, leaving that, and then into what were some of the like hardships or one of the things that you can say of like, this was a roadblock for me. Don't make the same mistake that I.
Good question. Direct answer here is be willing to let go of your former life. That's it. That was one of the hardest things for me, is being able to willing to let go of a former identity, because my family thought about Zack as one way, my friends thought about Zack as another, my colleagues did another, and I had all these different identities in the eyes of different people. And I was scared to really step into the identity I hold for myself. And when I fully stepped
Why
into,
do you think that is?
why do you think what is?
Why do you think it was hard for you to step away from the old you and into the new?
Because it's loss. I mean, think about what loss is. It's like loss is one of the hardest things that we process as human beings. Think about losing a relative, think about losing a friend. You become friends with that person. You know that I knew that Zack. In fact, I still know who that Zack is. That Zack just isn't serving
Yeah.
me with where I'm going. And so it did feel like this loss, like I lost myself. And I had to find myself back into the process of where I was going. And I think that right there, the biggest challenge that I faced was being able to be comfortable with losing myself in order to find a new version, find a new level.
Whew, dude, that was good. Yeah, I think it's a yeah, and the crazy thing too, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's almost like you almost don't realize how quickly you can make the change but it's not until you make the decision that I need to make a change that you could actually start making the change. You know what I mean? And it's like when I was in a spot where it was like, I was working at a restaurant and, I was making decent money, but it was like a off season, on season type of thing. And, in that moment, I could very clearly remember myself. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm comfortable. I make good money. But now, like, looking back at that past self is like, dude, what were you thinking? It's
Yeah.
like, there's so much more out there. There's so much more opportunity, but that version of me could not think anything bigger, you know?
And
So yeah, dude, what you said was super.
yeah, and I don't want to cut you off there, but I think just one more quick thought I have on that is you weren't able to think anything different because you weren't able to see anything different until you allowed yourself permission to see what was bigger for you, until you allowed yourself the permission
Mm,
to think bigger than the way that you were currently thinking, because comfortable is amazing. Everyone loves to be comfortable. Why would you change something that's comfortable? Right? But until your comfort became pain because of now you know where you are at and compared to where you want to be, the goal that you set automatically creates a gap. And here's the thing. Ultimately, if there's one thing that I would love to say to the world, it's like be very careful with the goals that you set, because as soon as you do, you draw a gap. And if you're not willing to close that gap, then it's going to be very hard to make a decision on the next step to that next level. So be very intentional
mm,
where you say you want to go, because as soon as you say it, as soon as you really allow it to sink in and feel it and embody it, it's almost like you don't have a choice anymore. That's how I felt, as I didn't have,
mhm.
and once I decided, there was no going back.
Yeah, dude, that's huge. Okay, so we're in the part where, okay, now you jump into, so did you jump into RCA first or was it straight into Ascension? What was the for context for people that are listening, we have three different programs. We have our like 30DC kind of like beginner program, we'll say. Like, I don't even like to use that word, but very much so like just getting started into it. We have RCA, which is the Remote Closing Academy, which is like the flagship program. It's where we started, full on mentorship and coaching and things. And then we also have Ascension, which is kind of the next step after you've already been placed. It's just like closer attention, helping you hit that, sales integrator next status. So yeah. So did you start RCA, go straight into Ascension? What was that process?
Such a great question. I could talk about this story for days, but I'll keep it simple. In
Sweet.
fact, Cole Gordon was the last sales trainer that I invested into. I got right into Ascension. This was, I don't know, midsummer. Don't know the exact day, but I got right into, did I say Ascension? I meant to say RCA. I got right into RCA. Okay. I became like, once I started going through the training, I had a one-on-one coach, and that one-on-one coach and I already discussed, hey, I've been closing for a while now. While in my, terms, but you know what I'm saying? I've been closing now, and I want to take it to the next level. I need to find a job opportunity. I want to find a position. So here's what I did. In 2 weeks after I decided to invest into RCA, we had the Ascension event out in Scottsdale. So what did I do? I booked a ticket out to Scottsdale for one main reason. I had one mission in mind: go find a job. Go network your ass off and go find a job in Scottsdale, right? And so I did that. I went out to Scottsdale, and I wound up investing into Ascension with my one-on-one coach and one other coach in the program, Jet and Matt. For those of you listening who know who Jet and Matt are, I invested into Ascension on an elevator on Jet's cell phone. They had the invoice pulled up. I took my credit card out inside the elevator. I put my information in, and then what did I do? They drove me to the W at Scottsdale to meet up with Superhuman, my next job opportunity. And just like that, at the snap of a finger, everything was in motion. So talk about making decisions, man. I was relentless on going into Ascension, man. I invested into an elevator, and then the story, is it's history from there. And I've had an amazing time in Ascension, and obviously have, not for the lack of a better term, and pun intended here, ascended beyond what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. And yeah, talk about like obviously making decisions, but also like the payoff of those decisions. You know what I mean? It's like you swipe the card and then like that was your ticket into the car to go to to
Yeah.
to get placed into the next offer. So, full disclosure to anyone listening to this, not saying as soon as you jump in, we're gonna, drive you to get placed. That obviously comes with taking action, knowing what you're doing and the training and stuff. But dude, that's a great yeah, I gotta hear the whole story.
Whole story.
Maybe not on here, but at some point.
Yeah. Story.
So okay, so I mean, at that point, so if you were an RCA, 2 weeks later, go to the event, then you're on the offer. So what was like your ramp up period from there? Obviously you gotta go home. So what was the
Sure.
ramp up period after that?
Funny enough, I actually didn't even land this offer right on the spot. They weren't ready for me yet. So I went into the pipeline into Ascension, got ramped up there, landed another offer. And your question, Aaron, just so I'm clear, is what was the process like for ramp up?
Yeah, just you had to ramp up from once you jump into there. So I guess in this case, you jumped on a different offer, and then so yeah, how did all that process go?
So I came home and I was back on Ascension coaching calls looking for a job opportunity. I was like, I need to find a different position, right? And so what I did was I jumped into the job. I mean, you guys have vetted opportunities that we can apply for and go after. So I jumped into the job pipeline board that you had over there at Ascension. I got into a couple interviews and decided to land and work with one company, and the ramp up was great. You everything is outlined in the course, everything's outlined with your coach. You ramp up, you get into the opportunity. Ultimately, unfortunately, that opportunity didn't work out, but it was for the better because now I'm on this opportunity now, which is actually the original opportunity that I met out in Scottsdale. So it's kind of crazy how it all came full circle, but that was the process. That was the process, and you ramp up, then you ramp down, then you ramp back up again. And as soon you realize you're just on a roller coaster and you're just going up and down, you don't know where the next turn is. You don't know when you're going to go up or when you're going to go down. But what you do know is that you're confident in your ability as a closer to handle it. And you have the right people in your corner to help you through the difficulties. And that's what I ultimately take away from this whole experience, this whole roller coaster, is that it'll never end. I'm on the Nitro. For those of you who go to Six Flags, I'm on Nitro and this shit don't end. It is just you got a roller coaster that don't stop, right? But I'm having, once you have an enjoy, you enjoy the ride, and you know that you're supported, and you have the buckle down, and you're safe. You're safe because you got people in your corner. That was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I always go back to, and it's the same thing with you decide to own a business or whatever. It's like you just got to be comfortable with solving problems. Like that's the way that I look at it, because it's like when you first start, right? When you first started, your problem, right? Or bottleneck or, whatever is, okay, I don't have enough time to do school and this job and this other job and this nightclub and all this. Now I need to make a decision of like, how do I alleviate that problem? Right. So then you decided to jump ship. And then it's like, okay, now my problem is I need to get better at setting. Oh, I'm good at setting now, or, DM setting. Then it's like, solve that problem. Cool. On to triage. Cool. On that, closer. So it's like always solving the problems. And, the reason I say that is you have to get comfortable with that. Like you have to become, using your example, you have to get comfortable with being on that roller coaster because it doesn't stop. Right. So it's like, as soon as you can make or make that realization that it's just going to always be like, you got to solve a problem. It makes your life a whole lot easier because you're not pissed off when you hit a different roadblock every single time.
No, 100%. Yeah. And you nailed it. You nailed it right there. And then once you get to that stage, it's funny because as soon as you realize the infinite game of this sales process and why, like what business is, and you read books and, read like Daniel Pink and all these other sales books, it's like, oh my gosh, all business and sales really is solving people's problems. That's it. And the cool part about sales that I didn't see before I got into sales is that it takes a certain type of thinking, a certain way of thinking, a certain way of decision making that people get stuck in, and we need to help them out. And that's why you're able to be paid a lot of money, because you're able to change the way people think. And when you can help influence and persuade their way of thought, that will create lasting impact and lasting change. And that's why I love sales. That's why I love sales. It's very empowering when you do it the right way, out of a leadership frame,
Yeah. So talking on that, because I've had a lot of conversations with people of like doing it in the right way. And I have this plan to start a different podcast kind of talking about this whole concept of I think my prediction, or not even a prediction, it's because it's kind of coming true now, is because this high ticket space, right? It's like it's continuously growing and everyone has a course, everyone has a program, everyone has something out there. And a lot of it's being built off of social media, right? Like organic social media. TikTok video explodes and then they now create an offer and it sells to people. But the kind of negative part about that is it starts to breed people that create programs that, for lack of a better way of saying it, probably shouldn't be making programs, right? From a, whether it's not ethical, maybe they're trying to take advantage of people, right? Maybe they haven't like actually done the thing that they're teaching themselves. So what, I guess, what was your process of like kind of vetting the offers that you jumped on? Like what types of questions did you ask? Did you do any research before you did that? Because I think that's really big for people, especially listening to this, that are looking for the right offer that's also ethical and helping you grow. So any tips for that process?
Yeah, there's a couple things that comes to mind. First off, if someone's selling a program, they're there to solve a problem to get a certain result. So the first question that I ask is, does that person have the result that you're looking for? That's number one. I'm not buying a fitness program. No offense to anybody out there who is actually, to selling a fitness program who's out of shape and overweight. I'm not buying a fitness program from you, right? So like, do you have the result? That's number one. Number two is, who did you learn from in order to obtain that result? Who was your mentor? I ask that. Okay. Number three, have you helped anybody get to the same result that you've gotten to? Okay. That's number four. Number five, or maybe that's number three, whatever step I'm on, right? Then I would say, have you helped someone just like me get to your spot, your result that I desire, right? And then the final level is, have you helped someone just like me get to where you're at many times? And how many times? And how reputable is that, right? And then, I'm not really so concerned with their professionalism and like their certificates or certifications and their education more than I am about the way that they've been able to influence other people and the level and the scale at which they've been able to. I hope that helps.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I just got done making a video on this earlier today or yesterday of basically everything that you said. It's like, like, how did the person get to where they are? How long have they done it? Right. Cause like there's so many people that are like overnight successes. They have like I said, a video that goes viral. They start selling stuff. The one that kind of like grinds my gears and, obviously if anyone listens to this, I'm not saying specific names, but there's so many programs out there where, for example, let's say they're teaching someone how to build like a marketing agency, for example. If they are not actively doing that thing and they're making the money from selling the course and not from actually doing the thing, and the reason, and then the icing on the cake is if that person is selling you a lifestyle that you can live with building an agency in this example, but the money that they're living the lifestyle with is not from the thing that they're teaching you to do, literally run for the hills. I think that's the cool thing with with what we do is like we're actively showing you while we're bringing you into the program that we're doing what we're teaching other people to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that derives from identity, Aaron. Like that's how I saw Cole. Cole not only is teaching others to the level at which, he's seen that success in his own career, but to take that extra step, that leap forward, or that layer deeper, however high or however low you want to go with this, it's who he is. Whether that's Cole, whether that's Brian, whether it's you, whether it's whoever it is that you're buying a program from, it's who they are, because who they are is very, very hard to change, not just the surface level of their action or what they do. And once I saw that, like, damn, like Cole is sales, like this, he lives, breathes, eats, and, bleeds sales. Like, I want that. I want that, I want that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's for the last well actually I do want to get tactical, but I'm just so curious of just like your story and stuff. I know a lot of what we talked about is like, landing the jobs and whatnot. What are some of the wins that you've been able to get? Like, we can talk commissions if you want to, or just like even, 'cause here's the thing. Like, I think talking about money is good to an extent, right? It shows what's possible. But I think more importantly than that, it's like what you're able to do because of the money. You know what I mean? So any, big wins that you can and highlight for, up to what you've been able to see for to now.
Yeah, here's a couple huge wins. And if I were to tell my younger self that I'd be experiencing this a year ago, right? My year ago self, that I would be in this spot now. It's super cliche to say because everyone says this, but there's no way. Like I think about it, like there's no way that this happened, right? Um, Here's what happened. My best month in sales was close to $40,000. So consistently, I'm now making between $15,000 and $30,000 a month in sales. Okay. Which has been epic. And the lifestyle that comes with that is something that you just don't know until you can experience it. You buy a new car. I love Maseratis. So like I bought a new Maserati. I travel wherever I want on a weekend. Sometimes I just text my mom or a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, I'll be out in Scottsdale this weekend. Or hey, I'm going out to California. Or hey, I'm going out to Houston, Texas. And it's like, how do you what's happening in your life right now? You get to level up your wardrobe. You get to level up. Now, this may sound materialistic, but nice shit is nice, is nice things. I like nice things, but you buy a new watch, you get to buy and help others with their, buy gifts and, have nice Christmas presents for other people. Like, for example, I was able to gift my grandmother and my mother both like in a measure, like an epic spa experience for like a full week for Christmas. And it was awesome. I would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
I got in here. So I think ultimately some of the biggest wins not only are just personal, but they're relational. And your relationships do elevate in all aspects, and you're able to really provide. You're able to give a lot. And when you focus and squeeze that giving muscle, you're really surprised with how much you receive in the process. So those have been my biggest wins so far.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And I think there's always this ongoing debate, I feel like, of like, does money buy happiness, right? And and a lot of people that are at the top, they're like, money doesn't buy happiness. And the people at the bottom, or that are less fortunate, right? It's like, oh, well, it does. Like it fixes problems. You know what I mean? Like it definitely, like I will say I am happier now than, having me and my wife and three kids packed into a 700 square foot apartment. You know what I mean? It's like it does solve problems that do make you happier, right? And I think the biggest recommendation, the biggest tip that I would give to someone is as counterintuitive as this might sound, is the goal might be money, but you can't make that the goal, right? The goal has to be, how do I help this other person? And a byproduct is going to be the money, right? I think the problem that people make is they focus too much on the money. And when they don't wake up a millionaire, they're like, well, I guess it's not for me, right? If you just focus on the day-to-day things that are going to help you help more people, it's the money will follow,
Wake up every
um,
question. I wake up every day with the question to that point of how can I serve today? How can I serve today? How can I help?
yeah.
Beautiful.
What are some, I guess, so that's where some of the big wins. What are, I guess, your goals like for the next 6 months, like in your position? Yeah, I don't know if you thought 6 months, a year out, 5 years out, but what are some big goals that you have in mind?
Um, Without disclosing too much about Supra, I actually was very intentional with my sales manager right when I came onto the job. I said, hey man, I'm coming for your job. Right. So in 6 months, I'm a savage, dude. I'll tell you right up front what my intentions are, right? I'll tell you, like, I would love to be into a leadership role, whether that be managing a team or over being a team lead of some sort. I want to get into the next level of coaching within sales. I also see myself being a sales team integrator and building out systems and processes and helping operations and taking a next step in business. Supra right now is on, we have a goal of 25 million this year, right? And it's not an unreasonable goal for our company, right? And if I have something to do with it, I like to think that it's definitely going to happen, right? And so if I'm going to be a large part of that process, then a leadership is definitely in the cards. Long-term goal, man, I don't like to think too far ahead in the future, but I see myself on stage. I see this is the beginning, this might be my first step. Who knows? Maybe they'll listen back to the first RCA podcast I did with Aaron. But I want to be on stage, man. Like I look at guys like Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and Ed Milet. I see these guys and I'm like, yeah, I want that. I want to be speaking to the masses. And the only way to start that is by learning influence and by learning communication at a very high level at this stage in my life. And I'm on that path. So leadership and sales, to be succinct in my answer, is number one. And then long-term is, building out my own offers, my own businesses, and being on stage.
Yeah, dude. And like you said, I feel like it's a theme of this episode is when you can learn communication at just, in the level that you are, it opens up so many doors, right? It's like one of the ongoing things that we talk about, especially when we're like the audience that we're attracting for RCA is like people that are trying to start, like they don't really understand business or anything. Not in a negative way, obviously. It's just, the skill sets that they have is trying to get in front of them before they start a business. Because if you just go try to start a business and you don't understand sales and fulfillment and prospecting and marketing and, operations, a lot of the things that you just mentioned, is it becomes a massive uphill battle. It doesn't have to be that way, right? If you just kind of grind it out for a year or, whatever the time frame is, learn sales, you have like the one fundamental skill that is going to help you do all those other things, right? Help you sell yourself to be on the stage, help you sell yourself to get in front of the right people, help you sell yourselves and say the right things when you're in front of those right people for them to bet on you, right? Like understanding sales and just, again, communication at a high level, it opens up so much opportunity, and you're a perfect example of being able to hit that point.
I would say if you've ever had a great conversation with a friend, or you consider yourself somewhat of an extrovert, right? Go all in on learning communication and sales to start. And if you just do that for a year, 365 days, 12 months out of the year, you just learn that, you'll be surprised how much time you can buy back. You'd be surprised how much people you'll be able to influence. And within 2 or 3 years, let's just call it 3 years. A lot of people spend 3 years easy in a beginner job, right? Or in grad school or in undergrad. You spend that amount of time focusing on one skill set. It could quite literally put you in the front of the right people and help you develop the right skill set to set you up for the rest of your life. And that's what I've learned. And I'll take that with me. I'll never be poor ever again, just because I'll know what to say and how to say it and how to communicate with the right people, all because I've learned and mastered sales. And a big part of that being due to you guys. So again, coming full circle here, huge shout out to what you do. Thank you.
Of course, man. Last question here. Actually, dude, I really want to go like deep into sales, but we don't have enough time to like go as deep as I want to. So I think what we'll do is we definitely have to do like a follow-up episode that just goes like straight into sales. I think what would also be cool too is maybe, slate it for the next like 3 to 6 months and see kind of like the progression. I'm in this stage now where we started this podcast about a year and a half ago. I'm starting to go back through a lot of the people that have done really well, then and even now, to just show like the progression and also just like show, I want people to understand that this is the long game, right? Like learning sales is not like, oh, let me like find one drop shipping product and then it does well. And then the next day it's like, it's gone, right? Because it's like it's an actual, like you said, like if you just buckle down and learn this high value skill, right? You can literally go anywhere you want in the world. You know what I mean? So I do want to have you back on. That being said, I want you to think of one like golden tip, nugget, trick that you would give to someone that's listening to this that you wish you would have known sooner? I'll give you like 30 seconds. I'm going to do the outro really quick, but yeah, I'll bring you back here in a second. So for those of you who are listening up to this point, I mean, it's been 53 minutes of us having a conversation about sales, being able to level up your life. And that being said, like, you're watching this, you've made it this far, you're at least a little bit curious about like, what is this remote closing thing? How do I take the next steps, and how do I change my life as well? So down in the description of this YouTube video, also in the show notes in the podcast apps, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, is going to be a link to a video that I put together. It's like 14 minutes long that breaks down the entire step-by-step process of what remote closing is, how the opportunities come about, how you can take advantage of the opportunity, and some of the steps that you can take in order to find some of these businesses that are actively looking for appointment setters and closers. Because I mean, we're recording this at the very beginning of 2024. One thing, Alex Hormozy investing in a school is going to be a massive opportunity for people. Like, now more and more businesses are going to explode, which means there's going to be more businesses that need setters and closers. So, that being one thing, and also Forbes projecting this to be, a multi $300-400 billion industry in the next couple of years. Like, the opportunity is, I mean, it's better than ever than it is. So click the link down below, check out that quick video. At the end of that, there might be, there is an option that we can like jump on a call, figure out if we can work a little bit closer with you. If not, totally fine. You can watch that video, take some notes, and you'll be in a good spot. So Zach, what you got? Last tip here.
Every great closer has the ability to ask great questions. So my golden nugget, my golden, I guess, phrase or something to take away from this is ask yourself, and slow down when you ask yourself this question: what do you want? Ask it in that way. Because when you slow down and truly allow yourself the permission to dream as big as you know that if you couldn't fail, what would you think? If you knew you couldn't fail, how dream would be big? How big would you dream? And really ask yourself, what do you want? Write out at least 50 things. Don't hold back. And a follow-up question to that is, what does it take to get there? And are you willing to do that? That's it. Ask yourself better questions and answer them. Be brave enough to answer the questions that you ask yourself. That's what I'd say.
There we go, bro. Well, dude, I appreciate you hanging out with us. I think, like I said, we definitely got to bring you on for a follow-up here. And if, anyone that's listening to this, obviously leave a comment down below. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Aaron here from the Remote Closing Academy podcast. See you guys in the next one. Talk soon. Peace.